Hello guys, today we'll be learning to use the choose function in Excel. In simple terms, the choose function helps us select a value from a list of values based on an index number that we specify. I'll take that again. The choose function helps us select a value from a list of values based on an index function that we specify. Now, this might sound complicated and not very clear, but we'll try two examples and I'm sure that will bring it home. Just before we start, it's important to note that the choose function is particularly very useful for scenario modeling. Scenario modeling is where you have like a financial model and then there's the base case, worst case, best case, and we'll try one of those examples and then we'll try another use case for the choose function. So if we go ahead with the scenario modeling example, the first thing we need to do is to establish our scenario label. So here I'll type scenario label, best case, base case, and worst case. Now I'll just give them, I'll identify them with specific numbers, 2 and 3. The next thing we have is we create a line that sort of makes our Excel sheet clean. So we'll say assumption, and then would have a scenario by the side. So the relevant assumption here would be number of units sold. Here we don't want to highlight. And under number of units sold, we would have our best case, base case, and worst case. And at the bottom here, we'll have our active case. By the way, the active case is the actual assumption that flows into the model. So what this does is, based on the index that we specify, Excel looks at the base case number, the best case number, the base case number, and the worst case number, and based on the index we specify, chooses the relevant one for the particular scenario that we want to model. And of course, that flows into our profit and loss accounts, balance sheets, cash flow statements, and all the other sheets we have in the model. So it will be useful to highlight the active case cell, right? So it's clear that that's what flows into the model. So let's make this blue. Yes, I like blue. Okay, so here the first thing we do is to insert something called a data validation. Now we don't have to insert a data validation, but it just makes it easy for the scenario selection, right? So to insert a data validation, you go to the data tab and then you see under the data tools, there's a button that has two bars with a green tick. So you click it and it says what types of value do you want to allow in the data validation. I say I want a list of values, and then it asks me where's the source of my list, and then I highlight the values from our scenario labels, so 1, 2, or 3, and then I click OK. So here what happens is it gives me a drop down where I can either select 1, 2, or 3. Now these numbers are what we're going to use as the index for our choose function. Let's also make this blue so it matches. Okay, so now what we're saying here is this is a hypothetical trading business. They sell units of a certain merchandise, a certain number of units per year and at a certain price per year, and off the back of that they're able to estimate how much they make in revenues in the coming financial year. So here the best case is that they sell 500 units. The base case is that they sell 450 units, and the worst case is that they sell 300 units. Now, what do we do to create our active case using the choose function? Now, a useful thing to do in Excel is to learn how a function works. When you start typing the function, you start with the equal to key. You start typing the name of the function. So here we're using the choose function, so that's CHO. Excel gives you a screen tip that tells you the choose function chooses a value or action to perform from a list of values based on an index number. Now, I already understand how to use this, right? So I don't need to open a function dialog box, but in the early days of starting to learn a new function in Excel, it's very useful to always open the function dialog box because it guides you on how to use the function that you're trying to leverage. So I'll start again, equals choose, and then when the relevant function pops up, you either double click the function or you press the tab key, but I generally prefer the tab option. Okay, so here, what do you do to open the function dialog box? After you press the tab key or double click the function, you press Ctrl A, and this brings out this function dialog box, right? And within the function dialog box, the first thing it asks is, what is your index number? And you select this as your index number. The next thing is, what is the first possible value from your list of values? The first possible value for us is our best case, which is 500 units. And then it says, what's the next possible value? The next possible value for us is our base case, which is 450 units. And then it asks again, what's your next possible value? The next possible value for us is our worst case, which is 300 units. And you select this as well. And you can have as many as 254 different possible values. But here we have 3, which is the standard for typical financial models. And then we press OK. Now we can see that Excel has told us that based on the index we specified, 3, which represents worst case, it means that we're estimating that we would sell 300 units of our product in the oncoming financial year. What's interesting now, if I were to change this to 1, immediately our active case would become 500 units because that would assume that we're modeling for the best case, which is to sell 500 units of our product. So in a nutshell, that's how the choose function works. So if we were to complete this case study by inserting another assumption, so please try and do this alongside me, and let's see if we all have the function on lockdown. So price per unit. Let's capitalize this. Make it bold so we can copy the scenarios we used here. So best case, base case, worst case, and active case. And then we can copy this as well, although we delete the values. Okay. So now, what's our best case pricing? Our best case pricing is that we're able to sell it, price per unit, that's Naira. So our best case pricing is that we're able to sell our product for 2,500 Naira. Our base case pricing is that we're able to sell our product for 2,000 Naira based on the competitive forces in the market. And then our worst case pricing is that we can only sell our product for 1,000 Naira. Okay, so now in the same way, we'll use the choose function to select the active case. So again, we'll put in our data validation by going to the data tab and clicking this button and selecting that we want a list. And then when it asks for the source of our list, we go back to our scenario label and select the relevant numbers and click OK. So now we can start with scenario 1. And in the same way, equals, choose, you hit tab, and then you press Ctrl A to open the function dialog box. What's your index number? This is our index number for price per unit. What's our value 1? Our best case value 2,500. What's our value 2? Our base case value, selling price of 2,000. What's our value 3? Our worst case selling price of 1,000. And then we press OK. And Excel says, based on the scenario you've selected, the selling price you're modeling for is your best case selling price. And we can always move it around from here and say, okay, no, that's too aggressive. Let's use best case. So now in our main output should be forecast revenue. What we will do here is to say equals to multiply our active number of units sold by our active price per unit. And this tells us we're going to make 1 million. However, this is not static because we can always move things around. So let me put this in. We can always move things around by changing our scenario buttons because our choose function is active and we can see all the different possibilities when it comes to revenues. So if I used our base case unit sold and our worst case pricing, it gives us forecast revenue of 450,000. If I use our best case pricing and our best case unit sold, gives us forecast revenues of 250,000. So this is an easy way to apply the choose function in scenario modeling. Now we're going to try a different use case of the choose function, and here it will come in handy in a hypothetical employee appraisal situation. So now the first thing as well is to create a scenario label. So here we go, scenario label. So what are the different levels and the different grades and the relevant remarks for those grades? So here we have typically a lot of employee appraisal systems will have 5 levels: outstanding, exceeds expectations, meets expectations, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory. Okay, and typically this would be a this would be a 1, this would be a 2, this would be a 3, this would be a 4, and this would be a 5. And it can be anything really. It can also go the other way, where outstanding is 5/5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now so what's the use case? So we have employee name, appraisal score, and the last column here we have remark. Of course, it takes us a bit to type to create employee name. So let's say employee 1, and then we just drag this down to employee 30. Okay, so that works. I'll just zoom in a bit so we're able to see the entire screen at once. So appraisal score, choose generate random scores equals to okay, so we have random appraisal scores for different employees between 1 and 5. So what we're trying to do now is to automate the remark column of our appraisal tool. So if you work in HR and you don't want to have to look at employee one, what's the appraisal score for? Okay, means the remark is exceed expectations. In our remark column, we need to realize that there's a catch, and the catch is that we should order, when we're using the choose function, we need to order the values that we want in the order that we want it. For instance, if the first value one represents unsatisfactory, in choosing the list of values, unsatisfactory should be the first, needs improvement should be the second, meets expectation should be the third, exceed should be the fourth, such that the relevant grades would sort of match with the values we seek. Okay, so we'll do this equals choose. We can do the first one and then we'll just drag. And then we'll press Ctrl A. So we say, what's our index number? Our index number is the employee score. What's our value 1? Our value 1 is unsatisfactory, because if the person scores a 1, we want it to be unsatisfactory. What's our value 2? Our value 2 is needs improvement, because if the employee scores a 2, that's the comment we want. What's our value 3? Our value 3 is meets expectations. Value 4, exceed expectations. And then we scroll down, value 5 is outstanding. Now here there's a catch, because we want Excel to continue to reference the same cells for each of the employees, right? We don't want it to move. So what we need to do is to make sure that for each of these numbers we introduce an absolute lock. And to do that, you need to press F4 on your computer key, and then you see a $sign before the column reference and a $sign before the row reference. That way, because we plan to drag this formula down across 30 employees, we don't want to have to do this for everybody, but we want to continue referencing the same scenario label. So we need to do an absolute lock on our values. All our values except for the index value, because bear in mind again, in this use case, the index value is the employee score, so we want that to change across the rows as we drag down. But the remark is, we're referencing the same scenario label for our remark, so we'll lock all the values, everything apart from, let me just scroll up. So as you see, my index value isn't locked, but everything else is locked. Okay, and I press OK. Now, as you can see, Excel automatically tells us that employee 1 exceeds expectations based on the criteria that we've set. Employee 1 scored a 4, and that means employee 1 has exceeded expectations. If we were to drag this down for one person, employee 2 scores a 2, and Excel automatically says needs improvement, because based on our scenario label, Excel says that 2 means needs improvement. I'll just make this look decent. Okay, and as opposed to, so I mean, drag it down one more time just to test that it works. Employee 3 also scores a 2 and it needs improvement. From that point onwards, the life of our friends in HR just got easier. All you need to do is drag down and it populates, and then we can check random values just to be sure that it matches. So employee 23 scored a 5, outstanding. Employee 24, 5, outstanding. Employee 27, 3, meets expectations, and so on and so forth. So that's another very important and relevant use case for our use function. If you run into any troubles applying the use function, do not hesitate to reach out to any of our heroes on our social media handles. Have fun using the choose function. Thank you for watching.